So I want to make 3 points. The first thing is basic SEO does still work. If you just ignore SEO, you're throwing away traffic, especially for a small company, a small local company, in fact. It's often still quite easy for a small local company to rank well. It's hard if you're in the mortgage business or if you're in the insurance business. If you want to rank for the word mortgage, that's a tough thing to do. But if you want to rank for the term rabbit hutch, I think it's probably quite doable. If you want to rank for the term, what can I think of the term for me? Think of the term. So a local business, you want to rank for the term.
Violin shop in Denver.
Yes, there you go. Violin shop in Denver. I bet that would be easy. I bet it would be easy. Is that one of your clients? I shouldn't say easy. No, it would be. that would be tough. When I say easy, what I mean is on a relative scale. Still takes work, but when you're talking about, I've worked with insurance companies, I've worked with attorneys, and the law is one of the most difficult online marketing areas, legal. It's incredibly competitive. And so when you talk about that sort of thing, it is quite complicated and quite expensive. But if you're talking about violin shop in Denver, that is a very doable thing. And a violin shop in Denver should be using SEO techniques because they really will work for the violin shop in Denver. Okay, I'm repeating myself here. I just did this morning. I threw it together this morning. Sorry, Dan.
Peter told me he's never done one of these drunk. So we loaded him up with 2 or 3
No, I'm talking too much, and I'm not taking enough time to. So I'll try.
You used to always talk about you Google rodent racing. You still come up.
Oh, rodent racing.
Yeah,
I think they come up number 2 now, which is. So yeah, okay. As an example, rodent racing. When I did, the second edition of SEO for Dummies, I decided to do a little experiment, and I managed to rank for the term rodent racing in about 3 days. Number 1 on Google in about 3 days.
Nationwide.
Oh, worldwide. Give me a break. I've tested it in England. In England, I'm number 1. I haven't paid attention to it recently. And the point is, it's very easy. If you have a non-competitive term, such as rodent racing or violin shop Denver, and there are probably multiple violin shops, but nonetheless, most of those guys are not doing SEO. And so SEO does work for these things. And so you have this scale of competitiveness. Down at one end, SEO you absolutely should be doing because it really will work. At the other end, it gets really complicated, really expensive. You've got a huge amount of competition, and at that point, maybe you think you're not going to do it. But for a lot of businesses, especially specialty businesses, then it really does work. Again, I said none of this is truly new. The idea that you should be looking at other things. And nothing is all about. And so when people say it's all about content, actually last time I was here, I offended somebody, didn't I, Dan? Dan. The guy I offended last time I was here, is he here? Is he here?
Do we have any
He's not?
hardcore content here? Okay. I don't think so.
All right, okay, so I can say whatever the hell I want. So it's all about content. So when somebody tells you it's all about content, whenever anybody tells you it's all about anything, you know it's not true. It can't be true because every situation is different. One size does not fit all. And so my belief about content is you do need good content on your website. And it used to be you could buy articles written by some Indian kid for $5 an article, and it might even be almost in English. But it would carry your keywords. It would have keywords in it, and it would pop up in the search engines. Those sorts of games don't play so well anymore. They don't work so well because the search engines are getting so much better at figuring out the garbage. So you do need good. If you're going to have content on your site, it should be decent content. So that's number 1. Number 2, apparently, is content is not king. How many people have heard the phrase? This is when I offended this fella. How many people know the phrase "content is king"? See, See, it's a popular phrase. It's complete nonsense. It's just, it is. I'll explain why. You can compete without these powerful content-focused strategies. You need content, and the more content you have, the better, but that doesn't mean you need to be in the content building business. What does content is king means? And if anybody has a different opinion of what this means, then I'm happy to hear this. I could never get a straight answer last time.
Well, I will say this. I mean, what was interesting is the last time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example you gave of these attorneys, that was through linking. You were building links. Now, you're using content off-site to build those links. That's one technique. There's a lot of different techniques. But I think it shows that the links we're building, the content was a mechanism to carry the links that pointed back to the website. And so the links were doing the work, but obviously they didn't need content on their website. It wouldn't have been bad to have it, but it wouldn't necessarily have made that much difference because it was the links, you did it. So there are different ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one weapon in the arsenal. There are different ways to do things. And this idea that content is king, I think is very misleading. There was something else you said that I've lost already. I don't know what it was. Well, maybe I'll remember it. I'll come back to it. So I think this is what content is king means. I think it means that content is more important than linking. I've even heard people say linking doesn't matter anymore. I don't know where that idea comes from. Now, just as a bit of background, I don't know how many of you understand this, but the whole Google revolution, as it were, was based on linking. Google figured out that if they looked at links pointing to a website, they could read the text in the links. So if you see a link and it says baseball scores, you can be pretty damn sure that the site it points to is not about dental surgery, right? You've got those words in the link. It's just an easy thing. The other thing is, if that link comes from CNN, it's quite likely that your site is more important than if the link came from Joe's weekly blog or something. So the search engines use links to give them clues about what the content is on the reference site and how important that content is. So linking is hugely important. So this idea that content's more important than linking is very misleading, I think. And I think content is king also means that every site needs to really focus on content and build lots and lots of content. And as you just heard, I can just flip through five slides now. As you just heard, you don't need to do that. So I have my answers for that guy I upset last time. It's a bit late now, but my answers actually would be in the form of questions. And the first question would be, is content important? Well, yes, it is. It is very important. Is more content better than less? Yeah, if you can have 50 pages instead of 10 pages, absolutely, because every page carries keywords. You have another URL, you have a title tag, you have a heading tag, and so on. So yeah, more content is better. Can a site with great content rank well without links? No, it can't. You could have the best content in the world, but if there's no links pointed to the site, it will not rank. I mean, that's just a simple scientific fact. You said that? It just won't rank. Even if you have one, okay, if you get one from CNN, that's huge. If you get one from Joe's... If it had great content as well? Yeah, but it would probably rank even if it didn't have great content. Yeah. Yeah. But my point is, even if you have a site without much content, it can still rank through the power of links. I mean, there are a lot of sites that have done this. And the classic example is George Bush's resume. Do people know what I'm talking about? I'm hoping not. So, and this was fixed. It's called Google bombing. A number of years ago now, I don't know, a decade ago or something, a few bloggers created little links that said miserable failure, and they pointed them to George Bush's resume on the whitehouse.gov. And instantly it popped up, well, within a few days, it popped up. So if you search for miserable failure, up would pop George Bush's resume. And I'm not making a political statement or anything, it's purely a technical statement. That's called Google bombing, and it works, and it still works today. They fixed that, so it doesn't work for George Bush anymore. But although then it started working for Hillary, and it started, and at one point it worked for Obama and so on. So other people played the same trick. But that's what links can do. Links are very powerful. You point the links with the right keywords and up pops the site. It's a scientific fact. Oh, I know what I was thinking. Your comment about the garbage content. I was actually writing about this yesterday. There's something in physics called the observer effect. I don't know how many people have heard of the observer effect. It says that basically, if you try to observe something, you will necessarily modify what you are observing. And that's exactly what happened in SEO. The search engines start observing the web, and then people say, oh, the search engines like links. And so now we have billions of garbage links, and I do mean billions. And then they say, oh, the search engines like content. I've got this kid in Indonesia who can write content. And now we have billions of, or maybe, I don't know, hundreds of millions of garbage pages. So it's kind of the observer effect. The search engines have modified the web. Anyway, does every site need great content in order to compete in SEO? No, it doesn't, because of the linking thing. So what it does mean is, for instance, you're an e-commerce store. I have some guys I work with in Australia who do picture frames. And so they have an e-commerce site and they have their basic content. And they didn't really build any new content. Now, what I always say is, do you have more content? Can you beef up the descriptions? Can we get more keywords in there? But what they didn't do was, go all out with a content strategy and start spending huge sums on building the world's best picture frame content, whatever that would be. And that firm is the firm that sent me that quote that I showed earlier on, talking about how now they're in the top 3 or 4. And a couple of years ago, they were nowhere. So you can compete without a really heavy content strategy. What about link bait? Now, link bait, everybody know what link bait is? Probably not. Link bait is the idea that you use something on your website, use some kind of content on your website that is either interesting or entertaining or incredibly useful or intriguing or whatever, something that will attract people to link to it. So you build this thing on your website, whatever it happens to be, whether it's the world's best violin article. I have a client actually who sells violins. He's doing quite well. Yeah. He's not in Denver though. But so is it an article on violins? Is it some kind of calculating? Calculators were very popular with mortgage companies and so on. So you build something that's incredibly useful, and then people around the web link to it because it is useful. That's called link bait. And that's the best type of link strategy you can come up with. But it's really tough. I mean, every violin shop in the world can't come up with the world's best violin content. They just can't. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and it also isn't usually necessary. So it's all a matter of context, excuse me. So why do you not have to have content, and why do you not necessarily start with content? And the reasons are, number one, you may already have enough content. And again, it depends on how competitive the arena is and how much content you have. So if you have next to none on your site, yeah, you're going to need content. So you may already have enough, and so like my frame company, he had enough content already to get started. He didn't need to invest in content. And the other thing is the whole competition thing. Violins in Denver is pretty low competition. You probably don't need to focus that much on content. Yeah.
On that, my company's getting ready to do new websites, and we have a ton of.
I would tend to keep it personally. I would use it. Why not? I mean, I'm not against content. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not against content. Content is good. I think I said this. Content is good, and the more content, the better. So if you have content easily available, I would use it. I would keep it. Use it. Yeah.
Can you just caveat that with the whole unique content?
So there's a concept in SEO, duplicate content, and people talk a lot about duplicate content and how terrible it is. See, I'm gonna come. No, it is a bad thing. The ideal content is content that doesn't appear anywhere else on the web. I think, again, we've got the two extremes thing here. A lot of people have this idea that if you have a page that somehow appears somewhere else on the web, then Google will penalize your website and kick you out of the search index, and that's nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. However, you wouldn't want people taking your content and putting it on 1,000 websites. If all your content appears everywhere else many times, that's the problem. If you have an article that appears here and there, it's probably, it's no big deal. And it's not going to get you penalized. And we know this because if you go to AP, Associated Press, and find some articles on Associated Press, and then do searches for those articles, you will find those articles on hundreds of websites, because that's what they do. They distribute articles. And those articles are not getting kicked out of the index. So that extreme, if you have duplicated content, you're getting kicked out, is not true. But it is the best idea is to have unique content that isn't appearing on other sites. Is that right? Will that work for you? Okay. So this is my final answer on content. I can't remember what I said. You do need content. You need quality content. More is better than less. But you might be able to use the content you already have. And not everybody needs an intensive content strategy. And so to my mind, that's something you decide on during an SEO campaign. You don't necessarily jump right in. Well, if you're in the mortgage business, maybe you do. Maybe you jump right in. Or a lawyer, maybe you jump right in. But for the violin shop, you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, we're going to have to spend a fortune on bulk up your site. You need 50,000 violin pages. And it's something you may decide to do later, depending on how the campaign progresses. Next thing, information architecture. So there's Dan sent me an article by what was his name? Rand Fishkin, talking about information architecture and how important information architecture is. And information architecture is a fancy term for how easy it is to find your way through the website. Is the navigation easy to use? And is it structured nicely, and so on? And to my mind, I actually add a few things on to information architecture. I call it IA+. I'm interested in professional site design. I'm interested in messaging, which is something that gets totally missed. And I'm interested in usability, which is closer to information architecture, I guess, usability. So the first thing is professional design. Your site, and we'll go back to the flames we saw earlier on, your site is creating a picture in people's minds of who you are and how professional you are. And if you don't create the right picture, they're not doing business with you. And that's just a simple fact. They're not with the, we saw with the flames earlier on. And it also builds credibility. It's part of the same picture. It builds credibility. So you can tell people, I built this website in the evening in my basement when I got home from my day job. Or you can tell people, I'm this big corporation. You don't know how big I am, but I'm big and professional, and I'll do a good job for you. So professional design is incredibly important.